I know that your relationship with money is completely messed up. And don't worry, you're not alone. But today, we are going to fix that. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Bri. I am a pre-qualified psychologist and this is a space where we talk about how psychological principle can improve our well-being and support our self-development. Today, we are going to talk about money, how to improve our relationship with money and how to manage money in a better way. This video is going to be divided into chapters. In chapter 1, we will talk about changing our mindset when it comes to money, which is the first step to improve our relationship with money in general. In chapter 2, I'm going to give you some practical advices on how to manage your finances in a better way. And in chapter 3, I'm just going to give you some final general tips about money. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before getting into the juicier part of money management, we need to do a work of self-analysis to understand what our relationship with money is right now and what we need to do to improve it. To do this, you need to find out what is your money trauma. Yes, you heard me well, money trauma. But let me explain. In general, our relationship with money will be highly dependent on the way we were raised. This is what psychologists call money trauma. The word trauma is there because more often than not, this relationship will be negative and influenced by negative events of our past. To understand how money trauma work in the first place, we need to understand that in different families, money will be talked about in a different ways. In general, it is very common for family members, in particular parents, to tell stories to each other, in particular their children, about money and in general the financial situation of the family home. Often these stories will be told using the same words. They get repeated over and over again to the point that these words will be stuck with you for the longest time, even in adulthood. But let's see some examples. So let's say that you were raised in a family where unfortunately there weren't a lot of money and where in general the financial situation was not great. If that was the case, maybe in your family you often heard things like we can't afford that or money doesn't grow on trees. If these sentences are repeated to you often enough, you might grow up believing that money is never enough and that money are hard or difficult to get. So what can happen is that in adulthood, even if you start earning some good money, you might be afraid to spend them. However, even the opposite can happen. So you might get to a point in your adulthood where you realize that you are earning some good money and you might start overspending to compensate for what you didn't have in your childhood. But money trauma is not something that only affects children of families who struggled financially. You might develop the same habits if you were raised by a family that had money but was reluctant to spend them. Or if you were spoiled by your family growing up. In adulthood, you might struggle with boundaries when it comes to money and you might often end up spending more than you can actually afford. Sitting down to try to understand what were the stories that your family told you throughout the years about money and how this might still be influencing you in your adulthood might help you understand what your money trauma is, which will help you find out how you perceive money in the first place right now. Which leads me to my second point, that is limiting beliefs. If you watch my video on the Pygmalion effect, you will know how strong our limiting beliefs can be and how much power they can have on our life. But if you haven't watched that video, to summarize, if we believe something about ourselves, our brain will do everything in its power to make that belief come true. Because, well, we just don't like to be wrong. We all have limiting beliefs about ourselves, and this is especially true when it comes to money. If you think stuff like, I am not good at managing money, I overspend, I can never save, money never lasts, everything is too expensive, or even worse, I have to spend my money as soon as I have them. Well, if that's you, you will most likely implement some behaviors that will make those beliefs come true. This is why the whole girl math trend really annoys me, but that is a conversation for another video. So identify what your limiting beliefs about money might be and try to shift them into more helpful ones. Instead of thinking, I am not good at managing money, you can start thinking, I can manage my money very well and this will lead me to financial abundance. abundance. Something else that you can do is to try to describe in one word how do you see money or what money means to you. So for some people, money means power, success, or safety, growth. The way you perceive money will also tell you a lot about your relationship with it. My last point of this chapter is fear, and I really want to talk about this. When it comes to money, fear and anxiety are emotions that many people experience. This can be fear of losing money, but also of dealing with money in the first place. I know that some people go for weeks without looking at their bank account because it gets too overwhelming for them. Other people will be afraid of getting involved in financial things like investing because they're scared. Oh my god, the amount of fear I see around investments is crazy. And I get it, okay? The topic and even the concept of money can be stressful, especially during these difficult times that we are experiencing right now. But if we don't let go of fear, unfortunately, we will remain stagnant and our relationship with money will never change. And the best way to combat fear is learning. Watch video, listen to podcasts, read books. There are so many resources out there where you can learn a lot of things about money. And the more you learn, the more your confidence will increase. And this is why our second chapter is all about learning how to manage money in the most effective way. By the way, the majority of people that watch my videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. You can fix that by hitting the subscribe button below. And as I'm really just starting in my YouTube journey, this will really help my channel grow. So thank you very much if you do that. Managing money requires some time. So the first tip that I will give you is that on the day you receive your salary, or once a month if you receive your salary like weekly or bi-weekly, you need to sit down for 30 minutes to an hour to do a financial revision. And during this financial revision, you will be putting your money into the right places. And let me start by saying that you can only consider a small percentage of your salary as your money. So what are these right places, you may ask? To answer this question, we are going to take Maslow hierarchy of needs. If you watch my videos on Maslow hierarchy of needs, you will know that as humans, we need to satisfy our needs in a certain order, and we will use that order to understand how to manage our money as well. As we know, at the bottom of the pyramid are physiological needs. So food, shelter, water, and things like that. So 50 to 60% of your salary, this will be dependent on where you live and how high the cost of living is in your area, will go to your basic needs. So you will use this money to pay your bills, to pay your groceries, to pay for fuel or transport, and your rent. Your rent will need to ideally be 30% of your salary. Then in Maslow hierarchy of needs, we have the need for safety and security. So 20% of your salary still doesn't belong to you, but it belongs to future you. In fact, we will put this percentage to cover any debt as a service for future you. You can include credit cards, debt, but also other things like your car insurance if you pay it monthly. But you will also use this percentage to contribute to your pension and to your investments account. Talking about investments is beyond the scope of this video, but please start learning about investing if you're not doing it already. And I'm not talking about trading here. I'm talking about investing some money for at least 10 years, ideally in ETFs and bonds like the S&P 500. If you want some money to retire early, to contribute to your future wealth, to your pension, but also if you just want to beat inflation, you need to start investing in the stock market. Finally, in this category, you can also put some money into a high interest saving account. I think it's fundamental for everybody to have a savings account with at least 3 to 6 months expenses in case there is a rainy day or a need come up. But you could also have another savings account to put money aside for something that you want to buy in the future, like if you want to buy a car or you want to do a holiday. And once we have addressed our physiological and safety need, we can think about everything else. So the last 20 to 30% of your salary are those that you can consider your money. You can spend this money on anything that you want, to buy gifts to yourself or to a friend or your family members, to go to a night out or to a restaurant. Basically, these are the money that you can spend in the here and now for anything that you like. Now, obviously, feel free to tweak these percentages depending on your personal situation. Of course, you won't need to use 50 to 60% of your salary for your needs if you're living at home with your parents. If that is your current situation, I would advise you to take advantage of it by putting as much money as you can into savings and investments. And here we come to some final tips. So my first tip here is marry the right person. This might sound obvious, but I think it is even more important when it comes to money. Do you remember when I asked you to describe in one word how do you see money and what does money mean to you in general? If you and your partner will give a very different answer to that question, it might be that you do not see money in the same way, and this might cause trouble in your relationship. Also, if you manage your money in a very different way, could cause trouble to your relationship. For all these reasons, don't wait until you live together, or worse, until you're married, to have some serious conversations about money. I'm not saying talk about your financial situation on a first date, but just to get into these conversations early in the relationship to avoid bad surprises. This leads me to my second point, that is talk about money in general. This does not mean to randomly ask people about how much they earn. I'm just saying, don't be afraid to ask questions, especially about topics that you don't know. You can ask people where they invest their money in, or what their favorite tip about money management is. I feel like we live in a culture, and obviously I'm just talking about Western culture because I am obviously familiar with Western culture since I live in the UK. There is such a big taboo around money, and I generally don't understand this. I just think that not talking about money just makes things more difficult for people. And I also feel that this taboo will just feed into the fear of money that people already generally have. My next tip is to use your social medias wisely. There are a lot of amazing accounts out there that talk about money management, investments, and by consuming this content on a daily basis, you will be learning a lot of stuff without even realizing it. And finally, my last tip is to just be very mindful about the way you talk to yourself and about yourself. Instead of saying, I can't afford that, ask yourself, how can I afford this? Instead of saying, I can't buy it, tell yourself, I'm being responsible by not buying this. In conclusion, our early experiences and our limiting beliefs can deeply influence our relationship with money. Understanding and challenging the stories that we tell ourselves about money can make us more able to let go of fear and become more confident about money management. And this brings us to the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did, you can leave a thumbs up or leave a comment, as it really helps the algorithm apparently. I am going to leave my video on the Pygmalion effect in the description box below, where you will also find my socials and my website. And that is really all for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!